Hi everyone, this is Jim and Crystal with our special guest Waffles the Cat next to us. This video will be about the premium dining package at the River Belle Terrace for Fantasmic.
And what's different about the premium package at River Belle Terrace is you stay at your table and you watch Fantasmic, and you can also stay there and watch the fireworks, but it's mainly for Fantasmic. So you eat your meal and then you stay at your table and you watch the show. You don't have to move, you don't have to go line up anywhere else, you don't have to sit on the ground, you sit at your table. So right into the check-in. This is our experience with the check-in. We highly recommend that you double check with the restaurant on the day of your reservation, because Disney can be consistently inconsistent and things can change. So this is what we were told. We were told to line up on the back side of the restaurant. So if you're looking straight ahead at River Belle Terrace, and there's the little ramp that goes up between River Belle Terrace and the Pirates of the Caribbean into Adventureland, you want to head up that way, and then you'll see a little metal gate that leads into the patio area of River Belle Terrace. That is where we were told to line up. When we got there around 6:45. They seat you at 7:15, so we just got there early. I thought I was the first person there, but I realized there was another family right in the same area, and they were there ahead of me, so they were first in line, which is no big deal because, as we found out, the tables are pre-assigned, so it doesn't really matter when you check in. Your table is already pre-assigned, so it's not first come, first serve. And some people in the surrounding area were a little upset because they were standing in the wrong area, but it turned out it didn't matter anyway. We just lined up there and the line went down the ramp towards the Rivers of America. We thought they might have a sign of some sort, or maybe a tape cue on the ground. No, they didn't have anything at all. So we were all just kind of like, well, we'll just stand here and wait and see. The cast members did come out right at 7:15. They check you in on their iPad. I did check in prior to that on the app, and then they check me in on the iPad, and another cast member gives you a wristband stating you're supposed to be in that area, so you have in and out privileges if you need to go to the restroom, because they do stand at the gate and make sure that you have that wristband to go into that area. And then almost immediately we got seated. It was really quick, and they seemed to be calling people to be seated not in any kind of order. I think we were the second people that got seated. And upon getting seated, pretty much instantly we're brought out a big basket of biscuits and 2 big glasses of water. And at that point we were starving, so we were very happy to see some biscuits.
Now moving on to the drinks that are provided with this dining package. All Coca-Cola fountain drinks are included in the cost of admission for this dining package. That includes your standard Coke products. We ended up ordering unsweetened iced tea for this meal. And there are a number of additional drinks that you can get for a slight surcharge or an upcharge. And the first one is going to be a mocktail, and that is the spicy tropical cooler. There's also a Chardonnay, a Pinot Noir. There's a wild berry mule, a sea witch cocktail. There's also 2 choices of beer, a Modelo or Smog City Sabertooth Squirrel IPA. And now we're going to talk about the food. And as Crystal stated, the minute we sat down at our table, we ended up getting 4 large biscuits delivered to our table, and they looked delicious. Along with the biscuits came a apple cinnamon butter that was sweet. One thing we do want to comment on the biscuits, they were really incredibly salty. I ended up eating an entire biscuit because I was starving, but Crystal couldn't finish hers. We were a little disappointed how salty the biscuits were.
But the butter was really good, and the biscuits weren't super dry.
Yes, that is true.
Up next were the appetizers, and there's 3 choices. We're gonna pop up the menus so you can read more about them, but I'm just gonna list them off really quickly. There was the chicken pot pie soup, a farmhouse salad, and the deviled meatballs. We both chose the chicken pot pie soup, and it was really, really good. It's basically just like a chicken pot pie, except there was no crust. It was just the soup, like the inside of a chicken pot pie, and then they put chunks of the biscuit in the soup. And I know we just said the biscuits were salty, but in the soup they tasted really good. We didn't notice the saltiness, and it kind of balanced it with the soup. And the soup was really creamy, really delicious. Jim did notice there was white and dark meat of the chicken in the soup. I did not notice that, myself. In any case, it tasted really great no matter what, and we really enjoyed that appetizer.
Now on to the main entrees. I'll be posting the menu so you can pause this video and look at these in more detail. We're gonna first start off with the pot roast. There's the Big Bell sandwich, and I do wanna mention that we've read a lot of reviews about this particular dish, and the reviews are negative, so you may wanna think twice about getting it. But if you have had it, let us know either way in the comments. It will help our viewers determine if they would want to try the sandwich. There's the roasted squash, which is your only vegetarian option. There is a blackened sustainable fish, the platter, which is a barbecue platter. There's a pork chop, and then finally a barbecue burnt ends pasta. So I ended up getting the barbecue platter, and on the platter it included a brisket, the pork belly burnt ends, it included fried chicken, coleslaw, biscuit and gravy, which I completely skipped, and finally it came with mashed potatoes. Starting off with the brisket was tender, it was lean. I thought it was a little lean for brisket, but I'm not a barbecue expert. But I do want to point out that the brisket was on the spicy side. I love spicy food. It was nowhere near exceeding my spicy limits, but if you have smaller children or you are sensitive to spiciness, double check with your server to see if it was the sauce that makes it spicy, or is it the spices they actually use within the meat to cook it. And finally, the closest thing I can say for how the brisket tasted is if you ever ate at Big Thunder Ranch, it is very similar to the barbecue over there. Now, onto the pork belly burnt ends, and I felt like that was the best meat option on the barbecue platter. They were tasty, they were tender, but they were also on the spicy side. Nowhere near too spicy for me, but for people who are sensitive to it, it's gonna have a little bit of heat to it. Fried chicken was delicious. It was boneless, but it was heavily seasoned in pepper. And so once again, this made it a little bit on the spicy side. The mashed potatoes, they were instant mashed potatoes, so nothing really to write home about. And then finally the coleslaw. The coleslaw was like a vinaigrette coleslaw. I actually thought that was one of the hits on my plate. I'm not a huge coleslaw person, but it helped cleanse that palate in between the different types of meat, and I really enjoyed it.
I ended up choosing the burnt ends pasta, and I really enjoyed it. Like Jim mentioned, my burnt ends were also pretty spicy. I like spicy food. It didn't bother me at all. I was just taken aback because nothing in the menu description says it's spicy. Our waitress didn't note that it was spicy at all. So I was kind of happy that our kids weren't with us because both of them don't really like spicy stuff, and I could have just seen if they had ordered that, it would have probably been an issue. However, my pasta dish was delicious. It had a creamy based sauce, and I really liked that the pasta wasn't drenched in the sauce. It was the perfect amount of sauce. And I loved the mushrooms that were included in the dish, and I knew straight away when I got my dish there was no way I was going to eat the entire thing, so I did go through it at one point and eat all the yummy mushrooms out of it because I knew there was no way I was going to eat it all. The burnt ends were really good, really nice and tender. I love that part too, and I just really enjoyed the dish. I think the only thing I'd want to comment on is when they initially brought it out, it had like a crumbly topping on it that was crunchy. I have no idea what that was because it's not on the menu. It didn't taste really like anything, but it was just a weird texture wise. Like, I'm not used to having crunchy bits in my pasta, but once they kind of got mixed in with everything else, I didn't really notice it. Definitely not a deal breaker. I still really enjoyed my dish, and in the video it doesn't look like it's a very big dish, but for me it was a lot of food and there's no way I could finish that.
That brings us to the most controversial part of the dinner, and that's dessert. Dessert has very mixed reviews out on all the Disney forums, and I'm going to read what the different desserts are. First, there's a house-made pudding, and it's a blue raspberry sour cherry with popping candy. The next is a cherry oat cobbler a la mode. It's toasted oat streusel, powdered sugar, and vanilla ice cream.
I read it's not really like a cobbler at all. I read it's kind of like a granola with cherry pie filling, and everything that I read, people weren't all that impressed by that one.
And then we got this last one, and it's the Fantasmic sundae, fresh berries, gelatin, whipped cream, seasonal sorbet, and a white chocolate bark. We're going to start off with that white chocolate bark because it's right on top of the sundae, and it had a waxy flavor to it. It just didn't seem like it was a very high quality white chocolate. When we got it, it was really dark at that point in time, and so it looked like it had an orange swirl in it, and I noted that it tasted like an orange creamsicle. Within that white chocolate bark, there were what I thought were craisins, but they ended up, after we read the description, it ended up being dried cherries, and then there's pistachios in there. I think if they used a higher quality base for the white chocolate, it would have turned out fantastic. Sorbet was excellent. We had a berry sorbet. I've been very happy with a small cup of sorbet. It was delicious. Below that was a orange gelatin or jello, and in there the mixed berries were blueberry. There was 2 of them, and the blueberries were excellent. And then below that was unsweetened whipping cream.
Next, we wanted to talk about the service. We had excellent service throughout our entire meal. Our waitress was great. All the helpers were great. Our water and our tea never went empty. We never had to track someone down to get anything. It was pretty much perfect. I think the only thing that we did notice a little bit is we felt a little bit rushed. And what I mean is she took our starter order and then wanted to know our entree and dessert order, and we really hadn't even looked at that stuff yet, so we asked her to come back in a little bit. And then our courses came out really fast, so there wasn't really a lot of downtime in between our courses. And for sitting at the restaurant for that long, from 7:15 till 9:30 pretty much, I thought they'd be a little bit slower with the courses. Maybe that was our fault. Maybe we should have said something, because we did notice the tables around us, we were already done with our entree and they were just getting their starters. Maybe that was our fault and we should have just said, can we slow it down a little bit? But we did say that at the end for our dessert, because we were so stuffed after our entree. We asked if the dessert could come out at the latest possible time. We were told was 8:50 because the kitchen closes at 9 at River Belle Terrace, and they did do that, and that was nice to have a little bit of time for our food to digest before we ate our dessert.
Once again, your tables are pre-assigned, so you cannot pick what table you're going to get. And there are 3 rows of tables. There's the front row, which is closest to the Rivers of America, and they're going to have the best view. But that front row will have people walking by them throughout the entire performance, because there's an active walkway through New Orleans Square right in front of them. That may bother some people. Behind the first row of tables are the second and third rows. We were seated in the middle row, so the second row, and those 2 rows have to contend with the people directly in front of them, plus the active walkway that is going through New Orleans Square. Now, once again, some people may be bothered by the people walking by. We never were bothered by that ourselves. Now, when the show started, the people directly in front of us in row 1 went from a dining position sitting across from each other to a half circle, and that partially blocked our view for the lower parts of Rivers of America. It was semi-distracting. It wasn't too bad. We're going to point out some of the negatives for sitting here, just so you get the full idea what it's like. There are going to be obstructed views depending on where you're sitting. In some cases, there's going to be brick pillars that may be in your way, and in other cases, trees will be the main culprit, or light posts. For example, for us, Crystal's favorite scene in Fantasmic is Peter Pan, and when the Columbia sailed by, it was partially blocked by the trees. It wasn't a deal breaker. We still thoroughly enjoyed the show, but we want to make you aware of you will have blocked views. Now, there was a family that was in the third row, and I want to say they probably had the worst table in the entire River Belle Terrace. Their table was located near the gate where we initially entered River Belle Terrace. Not only did they have 2 rows of people in front of them, but on the left-hand side, they had to contend with the brick pillars that were at the River Belle Terrace.
You can also view the fireworks from your table. Our waitress made sure to tell us that we could stay at our table and watch the fireworks show, and the fireworks pretty much starts instantly after Fantasmic is done. And you can see all of the projections on the water screens on the Rivers of America, and they pipe in the music. The only part you would miss, depending on the fireworks show that is showing at the time, is if any of the characters fly over the castle. You cannot see that part from River Belle Terrace. And just like Fantasmic, the trees are in the way for some of the fireworks. For us, we enjoyed our seat because they still kept that area clear of other people. So the only people in the patio area were the people with the dining packages. And they did have a cast member at the gate making sure no one else could come in. So it was, again, like Jim said before, it wasn't crowded, it wasn't chaotic. There was like no pushing and shoving. It was a very comfortable way to watch the fireworks. And we felt as if we saw enough of the show where we felt like we didn't have to watch the show from in front of the castle or on Main Street for the rest of our trip. We felt like we got a good gist of the show from where we were sitting, and we were very happy with that.
Why pick this dining package? We're going to give you some pros and cons here to help you better make an informed decision. As stated, you will have obstructed views. Probably our only complaint of watching Fantasmic from this location, we felt like the projections were not clear. Now, we can't tell you from other angles if they were perfectly clear or not, but some of the times we just couldn't tell what was going on those projections. We were a little bit disappointed in that, but everything else about seeing Fantasmic was awesome because you just didn't have the crowd of people. We didn't have to line up way ahead of time. As we stated earlier, I really need to be able to stretch my leg out, and I really enjoyed just having a table and a chair to sit at, and I was not crowded in with a lot of other people. We just had our own space, and that's why you would pick this.
If you were to ask us if we would do this dining package again, I think we would lean towards no, and the main reason is because of the price point. It is $89 per person plus tax and gratuity, and this trip, it was just the two of us. Our kids did not go, but $89 times 4, it gets a little pricey. And so we would, this last trip, it was a big splurge for us to do this. We were thinking if we ever did any kind of the dining packages again, we would most likely do Rancho del Zocalo because it's $35 or $35.99 per person. You still get an entree and a dessert. It just seems like a better overall value for our family of 4.
And by the time we would pay for this package again, I would be healthy enough to go sit out and stake out a seat. So we want to say thank you so much for watching, and we will see you in the next video.